Hello and welcome to Shakespeare Solved. Thank you very much for watching this video and being here with me today. My name is Glen Alexander. So this is very much a hopefully clearer and more concise version of my video Shakespeare's Coat of Arms ? With some of the detail left out, a few more things added in. And the overall arguments hopefully a little bit more strengthened. I should also say before I begin, you can probably tell by the ums and ahs, this is unscripted, so please do forgive any hesitations or umming and ahhing. Now, we're going to start with Shakespeare's funerary monument in Stratford-upon-Avon, Holy Trinity Church. You'll see the epitaph there, the bust of Shakespeare, and quite prominently in that monument we have Shakespeare's coat of arms. Now the first question we're going to ask is, where does it come from? Well, it was granted to John Shakespeare, Shakespeare's father, by the chief king of arms in England, William Dethick, and William Camden, the Clarenceux king of arms. I'm keen for you to remember this name, William Camden. Both have subscribed their names and fastened the seals of their office in witness and testimony of this grant of coat of arms being given. This is actually the third draft grant given in 1599. A couple of things just to pay attention to there. Virtuous, that seems to say Ben, how interesting. You may see this a little bit later. There was a wonderful article in the New York Times called Shakespeare, Actor, Playwright, Social Climate by Jennifer Schuessler, which I thought was really good. And I'm just going to read a few bits. The new depictions Miss Wolfe has gathered are all from the 17th century. More than half associate the arms with Shakespeare the player or with William, not John. It makes it abundantly clear that while Shakespeare was obtaining the arms on behalf of his father, it was really for his own status. That's Dr. Heather Wolfe of the Folger Shakespeare Library. Mr. Shapiro said he agreed. All evidence suggests this was not about the father, he said, but about how Shakespeare wanted to be seen. And that's Professor James Shapiro from the University of Columbia. So all evidence suggests this is not about the father, but about how Shakespeare wanted to be seen. And I very much agree with this. Now, we'll ask the question, what does it mean? And that is a very important question, which I believe solves the authorship debate. So, here's a very important book all about arms and armory. You may notice on the front, I've got this impress here and a quote. Now, this quote is actually from Ovids Metamorphoses. Ovids Metamorphoses is a very relevant book because it's widely agreed to be one of the most influential works and sources for Shakespeare. I know this is from Ovids Metamorphoses because in the back of this book, in the table of hard words, it tells me it's from Ovids Metamorphoses. My book, that's why I put an E on the end of book. It literally tells me this, and that says there was a countenance, there was one countenance in all of the world which they call chaos. This is actually a quote from Ovid's Metamorphoses. Now, this book is by Edward de Vere, and I'm going to prove that to you, starting with quite a simple proof, and I'm going to give you quite a few proofs that it is. So here is a slate. This is a summary slate after the first section where he's teaching about armorial lines. That's the lines that form a coat of arms. And my question is, what are the hands pointing to? And if you look at what the hands are pointing to, the lines, well, the lines that form Edward de Vere's coat of arms. So there's a really simple proof, but there's quite a lot of reasons why this book is by Edward de Vere. Now, this book is also dedicated to his cousin, Henry Howard. They are cousins. You might also notice there's quite a lot of V's that aren't joined together. We'll come back to that. Now, in the start of this book, there are 4 dedicated letters which all have significance and are all quite vital. So the first letter is by William Sagar Garter. This is the Garter King of Arms after William Dethick. The second letter is by William Camden. That's William Camden. That's the same King of Arms from the draft grants that we saw before. The same King of Arms has dedicated a letter to this book. The third letter we will come to, and the fourth one, which is very clever, it's all to do with John Beaumont and a common ancestor they share, but I'm not going to look at it in this video. So William Camden, the Clarenceux King of Arms. Here's his monument in Westminster Abbey. It's a very important monument. We're just going to have a quick look at it because there's lots of meaning going on in this monument. If we look what's around it though, and what's above it, you may notice we have this monument, and this monument is for David Garrick, the famous Shakespeare actor. And if we have a closer look at this monument, you will find actually there's a Shakespeare medallion hiding behind this curtain, the highest point of this monument. And if we have a look at what's written, a Shakespeare rose. Shakespeare and Garrick, like twin stars, shall shine, and earth irradiate with a beam divine. This is all very important. Will make sense a little bit later in this video, but I just want you to be aware that directly above William Camden we have Shakespeare. There's also a weird Q on this monument. An important date, 1623, the date of publication of the first folio. Got some arms and some other important things that we'll look at. So that's William Camden. Let's have a look at the third letter, which I think is a very brilliant letter. This is by Thomas Bedingfield. And Thomas Bedingfield translated Cardanvs Comfort, a translation of the Italian polymath friend of Leonardo da Vinci, Geronimo Cardano. But if you notice, this is published by the commandment of the Earl of Oxford, Edward de Vere. If we have a look inside Cardanvs Comfort at the epistles, the letters, well, you have a letter to Edward de Vere. Just notice this: those noble and rare virtues which I know and rejoice to be in you. So this idea of virtue. This travail in some discourse of arms, being your Lord's chief profession and mine also. So being your Lord chief profession and mine also. Arms are apparently his chief profession. You might also notice the spelling of Bedingfield and Bedding, well, the I seems to be missing. So arms are his chief profession. If we look at the next epistle or letter in this book, we have a letter by Edward de Vere. This is a letter by Edward de Vere to Thomas Bedingfield. Now this is a crucial letter for some of the proofs that we're going to look at a little bit later. You'll notice virtue, virtue, virtuous, virtue, virtue. Well, you have virtue 8 times in this letter. It's repeated 8 times. You also have this pilcrow. The last paragraph seems to have a pilcrow there. Okay. And if we look, you have quite a few double V's. 2 V's, de Vere, 2 V's. By your loving and assured friend, E. Oxenford. After these 2 letters, we also have a to the reader. The Earl of Oxford, Edward de Vere, is directly addressing to the reader with this poem. Now, for me, the most important part of this poem are the last 2 lines. For he that beats the bush, the bird not gets, but who sits still and holdeth fast the nets. Now this will make more sense in a while. So Discourse of Arms, his chief profession. Arms are Edward de Vere's chief profession. Well, let's have a look. So it just so happens in the Elements of Armories, chapter 12, someone else has done commendably very well with his discourse or book being of arms, and that person is Gerard Lee. And if we have a look at Gerard Lee's book, The Accedence of Armoury, he also has a discourse or book being of arms. Now, this is by Gerard Lee, but the characters who, through interlocution, are teaching you about arms are called Gerard, who is our Heorot, our herald, and Lee, our Caligate knight. So the two characters of this book are the name of the author. How interesting. And they're going to teach us about coats of arms and specifically how to blaze a coat of arms. A blaze is a description of a coat of arms. Now, in the preface of this book, to the increase of virtue, we have virtue, and we have a to the reader, and you'll notice it's the reader's advancement by virtue. So clearly virtue is important in this book. If we have a look at the last page of this book, well, virtue is very important in this last page. I'm just going to remind you of this with our letter by Edward de Vere, the Earl of Oxford. We have virtue 8 times, and we also have a pilcrow. So let's have a look and try to understand. It took me quite a while to work out what was going on here. Now, Hercules is a symbol of heroic virtue. Pegasus is a symbol of virtue. And if we have a look closer at this inscription, volat alta ad sedela virtus, which means virtue flies to the heavens. Have we seen that before? Yes, we have. If we have a look at the last paragraph, it clearly says, virtue yet will ever abide with us, that shall mount with our minds into the highest heavens. Virtue flies to the heavens. If we have a look at what is being indicated, though, what's being pointed at, well, you may notice we're pointing, if you just rotate this circle round, you'll see we're pointing at a P. Interesting. And also all around we have these 8s, just as we had virtue 8 times in that letter. By your loving and assured friend, E. Oxenford. So 8 times virtue. This is one of our proofs. Now, the front page, the frontispiece of the Accedence of Armoury, we have this wonderful coat of arms here, which is full of meaning, and it tells you within the book what's going on, who by reason have power to search the secrets of every kind, whereof the cardinal virtues have their original, whose tokens be showed in this scutcheon, which is shield between the king and the judge. Well, there is our shield between the king and the judge, and here are our cardinal virtues, our 4 cardinal virtues on this shield. And they are also written across the bend of this shield or mirror. If we have a look at Shakespeare's coat of arms, you also have a bend, which is this diagonal band going across your shield, and that's your bend. Here we have a spear. Here we have our virtues across the bend. They are prudence, justice, fortitude, and temperance. Prudence, justice, fortitude, and temperance. These are the emblems of them on the shield. So clearly virtue is very important, given its featuring on both the frontispiece and the last page of the Accedence of Armoury. Now, you've got lots going on this frontispiece. Fire. I'm not going to go through all of these 4, but you've got lots of tokens what people are pointing to. Have a look at these, some double V's, a T, a 6, a 40. So we seem to have lots of tokens being indicated by people pointing to them. But here is one of the key proofs. Again, this is the proof by corners lurked before. Within to the reader, and to the readers are always important in this work. If we just have a quick read through to the reader, if hereby your minds be stirred by virtue, to seek what erst you lacked, then are ye also indebted to this well-deserving author. But of necessity enforced ye of elder fame, embrace the man and love the work. For here your virtues are displayed and blazed to the world that but in corners lurked before. And if we have a look, as this is before, at what might be lurking, well, our herald, our Heerhort, is directly pointing to it. We have our Caliget Knight, who's clocked it with his eye, and also we're looking down at what is lurking in our corner, and what is lurking in our corner is our double V, 2 V's. And just to remind you, we have our double V within our letter there, which is linking virtue to this. And within the elements of Armoury, we have some typography of double V's. You've seen some double V's already, and you will see some double V's all over the place. This is from the first folio. If we have a look of the vignette, which is explaining the cardinal virtues of that shield, we have our proof by Pilcrow, which you'll see there. There is our Pilcrow corresponding to the letter that Edward de Vere has written for you in Cardanvs Comforte. Now you'll notice that this is the 4th paragraph. So T is our 4th virtue here, and preceding we have fortitude, fortitude, 4T, 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 and then our 4T, our temperance of our virtue. Now we're going to have a look at this proof a little bit later. My Lord T, my Lord that I am T. T is quite important because the Shakespeare's sonnets are 4T. And you have 4 T's, including on the very cryptic dedication to the sonnets. You have, it's your last word there, your 4T, and you have 4 T's. So you can see that 4T has been clearly linked to this. And also on the epitaph of Shakespeare's monument, we end with 4 T's. So the Accedence of Armoury, as I've shown you with 3 proofs already, is by Edward de Vere. So what? What does that mean? Well, it explains why the blazon of Shakespeare's coat of arms from the draft grants are in fact incorrect. It explains the meaning of Shakespeare's coat of arms and why William Shakespeare is an unworthy gentleman, and it also reveals the secret of secrets. Now I'm not going to go into the secrets of secrets within this video, but it is in my 8-hour video, probably towards the latter third. So the blazon, here's our 3 draft grants. Now there's loads of faults which I'm not going to go in and talk about. I'm just going to focus on one fault, which is the most important fault, which is this: silver. No King of Arms is ever going to blaze a coat of arms with the term silver. You use the French terms for colour, which would be argent. And you can see here we've crossed through the correct term and wrote silver. Now there's no way this is going to happen because we have 2 of the foremost heralds in the country, William Dethick and William Camden. So 2 heralds, they're not going to make this mistake. They're not going to make, one of them is not going to make this mistake. 2 of them most certainly are never going to blaze a coat of arms with the term silver. And if we actually have a look, it's very witty. In William Camden's letter dedicated to the elements of armoury, you'll notice it begins with silver. Very clever, yeah? Silver. I love this piece of wit, and just to show you here, it does tell you, but you must not term them so, and for to call them by these names, it were shame amongst the Herehaut heralds, and not worthy the name of blazon. So this is not worthy the name of blazon. So the elements of armories. Now, the way our author teaches it, he divides it into 4 components. The elements are lines, colour, number, and position. We're going to start looking at number. And my question is, how many spears are there in this coat of arms? I hope you answer 2. There's 2 spears in this coat of arms. And as it does tell us in the elements of armoury, sure, the even number is excluded. Why? Because 2 is a number of antipathy, discord, it cannot sympathise, it's monstrous, undernatural. So the fact there's 2 spears in there in this coat of arms is not great. There is antipathy between them. My next question is, who is shaking the spear? And the answer is the falcon. We have the falcon. Now, in heraldry, it is commonly accepted that the falcon symbolises one who does not rest until the objective is achieved. Now, falcons were used in royal sport known as falconry, the art of training falcons, to pursue and attack wild fowl or game, hence were often associated with kings, princes, and nobles. And Ra, the sun god, if we go all the way back to the Egyptians, was represented also by the falcon. And you'll see lots of Ra's. I'm not really going to talk about Ra too much in this video, but you may pick up on a few Ra's as we go forward. So number 4 is about position. That's how some of these objects, their position of such. So if we have a look, this is actually the last page of the elements of armoury before we get to the table of hard words. We can see we have the oblique direction, much like Shakespeare's coat of arms, and we also have the perpendicular position, much like the spear the falcon is holding, which is often termed pale. So first, immediately after, shift their station from thence upward into the dexter obliquity, talking about this, but just remember that line, shift their station from thence upwards. You'll meet that later. Bring it about to a perpendicular position. And let's just look at the last thing he says before he ends this. Thus much for position, the last element of the 4. And here, by your good favour, I will pitch up one of my columns. I just notice how that's italicized, that I will pitch up, so perpendicular, impale, one of my columns. Indeed he does. And give Deo Gratias, give thanks to God. Page 40 of the elements, highly crucial. We have an ensign. An ensign is a sign, a symbol, stands, which one day talk of arms, as unto their vertical point aspire, to seek the glory of God. So this is why it's so important. To the vertical point, it's seeking the glory of God. Sceptres or rods on top, whereof some symbolic images, or other, as of a bird, or the like. Think of them as ensigns, born after the manner in times of peace, to distinguish the honourable from the vulgar. We talk of the terrible dove. Could a terrible dove be a falcon, for instance, whose symbol of arms were a dove? The Sumerians, dove, out of one authentic author, to declare the Assyrians bear a dragon. A monarch bear a golden eagle, allusions concerning princes, painted out unto us in symbolic images, which yet I do not say were their arms. Up to where, look up upon this shield. So we've got all of these. It's like a lens of aberration. It's not saying directly the thing, but it's saying around. It's insinuating, suggesting what we're talking about here, this terrible dove, our falcon. Now, the falcon's clearly quite important, although it's not directly referenced in the elements of armories, it is pointed to, and I'm going to show you where. So we have within the elements lots of references to the elements of geometry, Euclid's elements of geometry. We know elements are important from the Ovid quotation on the front. So this is the first ever translation of the elements of geometry into English. It's imprinted at London by John Day. This is the back page of the elements of geometry. This is Mr. John Day here. If we look, life is death and death is life. Atatus sui at the age of XXXX 40, at the age of 40. Now, it just so happens that someone was represented by the number 40, and that is the Babylonian gods of creation, water, wisdom, and mischief, Ea, or you can have it the other way as well, Ea, Anki in Sumerian. So here's AE and 40. Coincidence? I don't think so, but you've actually just seen something which confirms this, which is page 40 of the elements. We have at the bottom, the last thing on this page, EOA is 40. And how do I know that I'm not just plucking this out of some language? Well, it's telling me it's the Babylonians. You just can't make this stuff up. I'm sorry, but it's too difficult. We're going to have a look at the front of this frontispiece of the elements of geometry. Now, I go through a lot of what's going on here in my video, Edward de Vere's life dates, but I left off the most important bit, which is this bit. And again, it's really important we pay attention to what people are indicating, pointing to, looking at. So let's have a look. You have one king, another king, the king of the animal kingdom, some cherubs and some people looking at this. We have a bird hidden away in the clouds there. Now, what is this bird? Well, to find out, I'm going to ask the other person with wings on this frontispiece, which is this winged creature here. And, well, what does it mean? Well, it turns out falcon is derived from the Latin falx, meaning sickle. And what is this winged creature holding but a sickle, which is a reference to the falcon's wing shape in flight. So I can be pretty sure, given it's been pointed to 6 times and by someone holding a sickle, that this is a falcon. So again, we have this falcon. Now, if we return to William Camden's monument in Westminster Abbey, we have some coats of arms and a crown above. Just also notice this shape, which I'm sure you'll see again. Now, unfortunately, according to Westminster Abbey, the inscription gives an incorrect age in the inscription there. There's a fault. There's an error. It says he is 74, apparently. He says he is 74 when really he should be 72. How interesting. And if we look at what he's holding in his left hand, he's holding his hand on his famous book, Britannia. Notice the shape there. That's a rhombus or a diamond shape. Now, in the table of hard words at the back of the elements of armories, we have this word here under E, and you might notice there's an E actually behind, and there's loads of E's on that little stone there as well. Under E, we have the word equivocal. The word equivocal. So I'm going to be equivocal now about this book, because we're also talking about arms, tokens of honour. We're being equivocal. So I'm going to suggest to you that this book is not referring to Britannia, but it's talking about another book of arms, which is this book, the Minerva Britanna. Okay, very clever here. We're being equivocal with the Minerva Britanna. Why am I saying the Minerva Britanna? Well, the Minerva Britanna is all about coats of arms, and you'll see this in a second. With one of the dedicated poems in the front, we have it's by William Sagar Garter. This is the principal king of arms after William Dethick. So you have a dedicated poem by a principal king of arms. With inward eye then on the matter look, foresee the author's care and little ease, T invent, T in print, and publish for your delight. Publish for delight. You might notice a 4T there. So you've got lots of impressions, which may on the surface look like they're saying things, but you really need to see this with your inward eye to understand. For instance, if we have a look at the front, this is a secret arm, a secret coat of arms. Very clever, no? The last thing that we're writing is or in arms is gold. And just to remind you, the first letter in the Elements of Armories is by William Sagar Garter, the same principal king of arms in the Elements of Armoury. Now, if we have a look at the first emblem in the Minerva Britanna, you have this, a secret arm outstretched from the sky. Again, we're being equivocal here. And from above thy crown. Well, if we have a look at William Camden with the Britannia, we have some coats of arms and what is above but a crown. And all the way through this book, you'll see this now. You have arms left, right and centre. Here's a very deliberate arm that you can just see there. Now, I think one of the most significant things about this book, which you'll see both at the beginning, the middle and the end of the book, right on the frontispiece for you, is this, something we've already met, at the sign of the Falcon. So again, right at the beginning, we've got the Falcon, you've got a double V that I'm sure you can see there. In the middle, we have the impress of the princely falcon there. That hath long been manned and taught to stoop unto the tossed law, is now escaped from his master's hand, and will no more such servitude endure, but better likes the field and forest's spray, and for himself in elder age to pray. Well, this is an elder age, and I'm going to suggest to you that field is referring to the first ever publication of Shakespeare's work, Mr. Richard Field, who's a very important printer. This is the Ancora spy there, which is a very crucial printing device and a sign of our author. The virtuous mind and truly noble sprite can seldom brook. I'll suggest to you that that's Ralph Brooke, but I'm not going to go into that. He's a herald who contended Shakespeare's coat of arms in bondage base to serve, but most doth in his liberty delight, still rather choosing by himself to serve than eat from some caterpillar's envied bread, or at another's courtesy be fed. Remember, ore is gold. This impress is called Servere Nescit, which means Servere Nescit, serve knowledge. And at the end, we have our author's conclusion. We'll maybe speak about that a bit later. The Falcon, for the king's delight. We have one idea repeated more than any other here. I bet you can guess what it is. With the Falcon for the king's delight, we have, we'll skip over Great Edward, that did the Falcon Shroud, York's Lock, that did the Falcon Shroud, the loyal Vere, the brave Falcon Bridge. We've got 3 times Falcon in this conclusion. And if we have a look, by virtue, present and secure. And look at this. This is the last paragraph. Now what they were on every tree devices, new as well as old, of those brave worthies faithfully. Well, brave Falcon Bridge, and a synonym for faithful is loyal, the loyal Vere. So the brave Falcon Bridge and the loyal Vere, it is telling you what's going on. Shall in another book, notice the E on the end, be told. This is the penultimate impress in this book, and indeed in another book it will be told. This is actually about the Ancora Spy, the printing device you saw before. It's the water brush, the anchor. It's very good. But anyway, let's have a look in the side notes and footnotes, which are full, chock-a-block, packed full of meaning. We have another book referred to, Caesar Ripper's Iconologia, and actually this book's referred to a number of times. You might notice what's in Caesar there. Musicians, painters and poetic crew accept what Ripper dedicates to you. Now this book is the Iconologia by Caesar Ripper, and it's really useful because it actually helps us understand via the overlap of emblems what's going on. So take this one for instance. Well, in the Iconologia you have luck, and it's the same one, and it helps us explain. This is all to do with 2 people changing places, a rich man and a poor man, with our crown and our halter changing places. It's the same emblem. Now we'll just have a quick look at the Iconologia. There's lots of going on. Various images of virtues, elements. I could have underlined arts as well, talking about previous cultures, and all lovers of ingenuity. That'd be useful for later. I should have maybe underlined that P as well, because as we know, P is quite important. Tempest, which you'll see, and Benjay Mote has printed this to the reader. Always important because it tells you who the author is, accompanied with curious and solid morals. Owing to very learned authors, the understanding peruser of this book will meet therein things not only to divert the mind, but to instruct it and to inspire him with the love of virtue. Now, this is one of the most important impresses in this book. Why? Because it's the falcon. And what is the falcon looking at but verity? Vere means truth, so there's verity. And you might notice that verity is looking at the sun there. If we just have a little closer inspection at what these mean, we have verity. The naked beauty holds a sun in her right hand, in her left a book open with a palm, under one foot the globe of the world, naked because downright simplicity is natural to her. The sun shows her great delight in clearness, the book that the truth of things may be found in good authors. The palm, oh, that looks like a quill to me, her rising the more she is depressed. The globe, that being immortal, she is the strongest of all things in the world and therefore tramples upon it. We also have our other adjacent one, which is this, our modest bashfulness, where the falcon was. I know this is a falcon because it tells me it's a falcon. I'm just going to put that there as well. This is the bust of Shakespeare in that funerary monument. We've already had the modest bashfulness, just to define bashfulness, unassuming one's abilities, reluctant to draw attention to one's self. A modest, sweet-looked girl, casting down her eyes, clad in red, cherry-cheeked. An elephant's head, an elephant is bold, for her headdress, a falcon in her right hand, or a feather, and a scroll in the left, or parchment, inscribed Dystopia Procol, defective vision from far away. The cheeks, the rosy cheeks and gown denote blushing, the elephant bashfulness, seeking privacy in the venereal act, the falcon modesty, for if it fail to catch its prey, it is so ashamed that it can scarce be reclaimed to the fist. Well, I hope that the falcon is catching its prey. This is a great emblem in the Minerva. Yet nothing worth unless ye here with find Edward de Vere became nothing. Tandem divulganda, finally publicised. We have your keys, lock, that did the falcon shroud. And what do we have? We have a key, perhaps a golden key, that did the falcon shroud with wings. And if we have a look at the bottom, and greatest secrets, though they hidden lie abroad at last, with swiftest wings they fly. Now, hopefully, the To the Reader poem by the Earl of Oxford now makes a little bit more sense to you. So if we have a look again, for he that beats the bush, the bird not gets, but who sits still and holdeth fast the nets. Well, you're not going to beat this bird, I very much doubt, because the falcon is the fastest animal still in the world today. The peregrine falcon is actually the fastest animal in the world. So this is incredibly witty and shows a great knowledge and a huge amount of learning even then. Now, if we have a look at this interesting book, the Book of Coats and Crests, which currently resides in the British Library by William Smith, well, we have Shakespeare's Coat of Arms on page 66, which hopefully you're becoming more familiar with now. But funnily enough, on page 17, we also have Shakespeare's Coat of Arms, but this bird doesn't seem right. It looks very sickly. It doesn't look very happy, does it? And that is because, if you notice, its spear is also at an oblique angle, at the same angle as the spear on the coat of arms. This bird, nice and happy, chirpy, full of life, because it's upright, seeking the glory of God. This falcon, not very happy. Now, if we have a look at this page, what we really need to start getting good at is looking at what is adjacent or around the thing that we're looking at. So here's our sickly bird, but here we have Pegasus, which, remember, is virtue. We also have this sun there. On the other side, we have an ox, and you could argue that that's XOV, the initials of Edward de Vere, the Earl of Oxford. And this one here, oh, look, we have an Edward. And remember, this is on page 17. Coincidence? I don't think so. So the falcon, as we've seen, is quite important, which we've just discussed. There's loads of references, including in a lot of Shakespeare's canon, but I'm not going to go into that. I go into that more in my longer video. So there was also, this is from Wikimedia Commons, there's also a motto that accompanied the coat of arms, which is this, non sans droit, which means not without right. Now, you'll notice that there's something going on with the capitalisation here. Here it's just the first letter of each word. Here it's full caps. Here it's no caps. And in draft grant number 2, it seems we're really uncertain. Now, the really interesting thing is both of these draft grants are dated the same day. So this is the same day, and that's 4 times. 4 times this motto is not correct. There's uncertainty around it. Clearly something is going on. Now, it means from Old French, not without right. And if we have a look at this motto, it's really interesting. So in Ben Jonson's 1599 play Every Man Out of His Humour, there's a character called Sogliardo, and his motto, as referred to by another character, is not without mustard. If we just have a look at that, this character here, Puntavolo, let the world be not without mustard. Your crest is very rare. Mustard being a colour akin to gold, which is one of the main colours featuring on Shakespeare's coat of arms. And if we have a look at the Accedence, it just so happens that such be they as will rather swear arms than bear arms, who of negligence stop mustard pots with their fathers' pedigrees. I'm not sure how more explicit you can get given where Shakespeare's coat of arms has come from. Or, remember, or is gold, mustard, gold, otherwise abuse them. It's talking about ungentlemen there. Now, the character of Sogliardo, interesting character. He's the clown, the buffoon of the play. So enamoured of the name of a gentleman that he will have it though he buys it. Everyman, of course, is a satire. It's a general mockery of socially ambitious fools. Sogliardo, I wonder what you can see within that word, is a country bumpkin, perhaps from Warwickshire, new to the city, who boasts of the coat of arms he has recently purchased, but clearly doesn't understand it. And this play, Every Man Out of His Humour, contains more than hath been publicly spoken or acted. If we have a look at the names of the actors, we have Puntavolo, who's playing quite a few characters here. You might notice this bit, which is really interesting. The tailor and the shoemaker, well, it just so happens in the Accedence of Armoury, where we have a reference to every man. We have the tailor and the shoemaker, but will be as gentlemanlike as gentleman himself. It tells a very lovely story about a tailor and a shoemaker, which is definitely worth reading. We also have this character here, Fast Brisk, and look, on the next page actually even spells it wrong with a P instead of an F. How interesting. But you'll notice that this character goes to shift, and shift is important. In the previous play, Every Man in His Humour, turns out Shakespeare was included in its cast as a player. So in Every Man in His Humour, Shakespeare was in the cast list. Every Man Out of His Humour, is it any surprise that Shakespeare is not included in the cast list? Vere, every. There's this wonderful impress in the Iconologia as well, where you have this Y, which is free will. So Vere's free will man out of his humour, and indeed Shakespeare was not included in the cast of this play. Sometimes it's as important as what you leave out as what you include. And the author does say it was not near his thought or to make vulgar and cheap any the particular and sufficient deserts of the actors, to give all leave and leisure. And he's certainly given one actor leave in this play. So, who is the playwright of Every Man Out of His Humour? Hopefully you'll tell me Ben Jonson. Ben Jonson's quite important because if you have a look at the first folio, you have Mr. William Shakespeare and the very famous Droeshout portrait, and you have directly opposite, a nice poem by Mr. Ben Jonson, a To the Reader. As I said, to the readers, crucial to understand who the author actually is. You'll notice the E on the end of book there. This was published in 1623, same date as the William Camden monument. Now, luckily, I don't know how I managed to do this. Maybe I understood the sonnets or the instructions in the sonnets, what they were telling me to do. But it turns out you can take, and I'm the first person in the world to do this, I believe, you can take 4 pictures of this copy of the Drew-Out portrait. You can put them on top of each other, align the eyes and shine a light through the back, and you can make hidden pictures within this portrait. Here's a picture of a lamb. Sometimes it takes some people a while to see it, some people get it straight away. You've got the eyes there, its mouth there, so there is your lamb. Hopefully you can see it. You've got the ears, yeah. And of course it tells you in the sonnets, if like a lamb he could his looks translate. Now, indeed, he has translated his looks, and there is a lamb. You can make a number of different images, actually, by aligning different eyes and using different numbers of copies, which is really interesting. But I just want to show you that there's more going on here than meets the eye. And also, to lay this idea, I've shone a light through the back of this portrait. So, Sogliardo also has this line, "Oh, admirable rare, he cannot choose but be a gentleman that has these excellent gifts. More, I beseech ye." Well, it just so happens that Ben Jonson is also buried in Westminster Abbey in a very unassuming grave that if you've visited Westminster Abbey, you have probably walked over. And the inscription on this gravestone is "O rare Ben Jonson," a reference to every man out of his humour. Well, interestingly, there's two stones for Ben Jonson. There's this one in the wall, perpendicular to this stone here. And interestingly, Ben Jonson is the only person in Westminster Abbey who is buried in an upright position. He's buried in an upright position, and I will pitch up one of my columns. Indeed, he has, that column being his most natural column, his body. And remember, it's to seek the glory of God, to the vertical point aspire. And if we have a look here at those from the Cardanvs Comforte right at the beginning of the letter, which increase of those noble and rare virtues which I know and rejoice to be in you. That was a letter to Edward de Vere. Now, you may notice if you actually compare Ben Jonson's name as it normally appears and this stone, we have a H in Ben Jonson, which is a little bit peculiar. Now, there's a reason for that, and you've been seeing this already quite a lot. But the question we need to ask is, where does the letter H come from? And if we think back to its origin, it comes from Het, or Heth, it's pronounced Het. It's the 8th letter of many Semitic alphabets, and from the Phoenician 8th letter as well. It gave rise to the Greek letter Eta. That's its lowercase, that's its uppercase. It is an E sound, where Eta is the second letter. If you look around any like graveyard, you'd see at the top of some people's gravestones IHS. That's actually a J. That's the first 3 letters of Jesus. It's the IHS monogram. First 3 letters of Jesus. Your Eta is your E sound. It's a long E sound. So your Eta is an E sound, which nicely explains this little emblem in the Minerva Britanna. We have our Eta and our Epsilon, our other E sound. So they're both E's. Now, this is the figure of addition. E's are quite important because with the Shakespeare monument in Westminster Abbey, you'll notice his arms are in an E. What's he pointing to? He's pointing to the letter E in temples. Towers, the E is actually missing from towers, and he's pointing to it, so you know it's important. Now, this is just beautiful. Now, we know you know Sumerian because I mentioned Sumerian in the elements of armories, but temples in Sumerian actually means E. So he's not just pointing to E, but the word temples itself in Sumerian means E. You could also draw a line through these points and it will go to some very important letters, including your eta and your e. Now, if you compare this to the Tempest, you might remember what was on the front of Caesar Ripper's Iconologia. If you compare this to the Tempest, you're going to find a number of discrepancies between what's on this scroll and what's in the first folio Tempest. And what you will do is you'll find loads of additional E's of underlying discrepancies, but you'll find loads of E's as well, additional E's on the ends of things. Why? Because this is the figure of addition. It's a very crafty way of showing some conceit, some mischief, some wit is at play. And you'll see this. I've told you that het is where H comes from, your eta. You'll now notice, and this is just absolutely beautiful, you have your double V is het. That's not wisheth, that's double V is het, and it's absolutely spot on. This is masterful wit. And now you may notice from the Ben Jonson poem opposite the Drew-South portrait that E is italicised, and we have some E's on the end of look and book, and your eta is in your Jonson. So this is the figure of addition, your E. He's letting you know he's doing something. So here we go. We've seen Ben Jonson's gravestone. Now, William Camden's book, you might remember the shape of what was on the front of Mr. William Camden's book. That is a diamond shape, and you'll see the same diamond shape there. Now, I was very fortunate because when I took a picture of this in Westminster Abbey, I accidentally managed to capture what was above this, and I'm very glad I did, because this led me to work out what was going on, which is this. Do you see it? That is a golden falcon directly above and pointing to this very humble grave of Mr. Ben Jonson, or whoever is really buried underneath there. And you may notice there, in wisdom hast thou made them all, and indeed in wisdom thou hast made them all, Mr. Ben Jonson. Now, if we just find out a little bit more about who Ben Jonson is, well, Ben Jonson is a poet, playwright, and actor. Little is known about his parents. Possibly attended Cambridge, went into trade as a bricklayer, no children survived him, became an actor, he killed a fellow actor. Can I remind you that murder during this time is a capital offence? If you kill someone, you're going to face the death penalty. For the most part, so that's very interesting. There was he escaped hanging and was imprisoned for a short time. Doesn't seem to have affected his reputation. Yeah, I wonder why. His play Every Man in His Humour included Shakespeare, but not every man out of his humour. A well-known writer of masques. Did you spot the most important thing though? He was educated at Westminster School at the expense of one master, William Camden. Yep, you really couldn't make this up. So Ben Jonson also wrote an epigram to William Camden. Camden, most reverend head, to whom I owe all that I am in arts, all that I know, how nothing's that, to whom my country owes the great renown, a name wherewith she goes. Indeed, an epigram is witty, and all that I am in arts, he does very much owe to William Camden. You'll meet that, I'm sure, in just a second. Remember that this monument is the same date of publication as the first folio, and there's that weird Q. That weird Q you'll actually find, and I actually made this discovery while I was making the video Shakespeare's Coat of Arms, so you get to watch that live. So here's your Q here. Perhaps it stands for Queen, question, I don't know, but there's your Q there. Now, if we have a look around this, I will show you the figure of a Heerhout in his apt apparel, in his correct clothing. Such one as King Edward, you notice the E on the ends, made for bringing him good news from Britain, by which figure you shall perceive, and I hope you will. Herehort may have all honourable shifts that possibly may serve thereto. Coat of Arms, and of course this shift is referring to a shift in Everyman, a threadbare shark, much like a dragon or terrible dove. A threadbare shark is a very witty reference to that Falcon. Standeth here, and for that shift making, indeed. Had the Queen's royal coat of arms. Indeed, it does actually, now I think about it, have the Queen's coat of arms. Thus, Herehort stand thus. We discuss someone who is standing. Account him not so bare of knowledge of this art, and then a very cryptic thing here. Good luck solving that. I reckon when it says, for he can read and well understand these two verses following, he's not referring to these two following verses. He's referring to the two previous sentences, which best describe what's actually going on, but that's my opinion. So, Ben Jonson. Just so happens, Ben Jonson, his library burnt down in 1623. Now, his library is very important because it's been compared to... his sources must be the most comparable library to that of which Shakespeare has used. It was very well furnished. Well, it just so happens that that library burnt down at exactly the same year of publication as the First Folio and William Camden's monument. Now, Ben Jonson's personal library was destroyed by fire. The author describes this disaster in his poem Execration against Vulcan. Now, in the Every Man Out of His Humour, Sogliardo says this: by this element, we know elements are important from the Elements of Armoury and elements of geometry, and in my video Wit and Brass Part 2 we look at the Elementaire, which effectively standardises English. It's quite an important book, that one, by Richard Mulcaster, if I remember correctly. He is an ingeniously tall man as ever swaggered about London. He and I call countenance and resolution, but his name is Cavalier Shift. So we know Shift is quite significant already, but it's linking it to countenance and resolution. Well, just so happens in the Iconologia we have something called countenance and resolution, and Punter Verlio, who really is the character representing De Vere. Faith, let me end it for you, gallants. You shall be his countenance, and he your resolution. And it tells you, Shift, Faith, I am easily yielding up to any good impression. Well, let's have a look. This is one of my favourites in the Iconologia. This is the love of one's country, and he really, really did love his and our country. So this is a vigorous young warrior standing upright. We've looked at someone standing upright amidst flame and smoke. This book is all about fire and flames and smoke, and we'll see some more flames and smoke, I'm sure, shortly. Carries a crown of perhaps laurels for a poet in each hand, and being just upon the brink of a precipice, yet marches courageously over spears and tramples upon naked swords. And there's more brilliance going on there, but I'm not going to go into it. Let's have a look at the front of the Execration against Vulcan. We have Ben Jonson and Johnson. You'll notice here we have the figure of addition of this H, this eta inside Ben Jonson, and also you'll notice the colon there. We have two as well, because there are two stones for Ben Jonson in Westminster Abbey. Vere, there's your Vere. We have our double V, our double Vere, our De Vere's. The same author to several noble personages in this kingdom, indeed he was. Nevere, John Benson on the front. You'll notice that these books are at a right angle. They're perpendicular, just like the stones in Westminster Abbey. And if we have a look here, at the bottom, this is here. It says, "Oh, could there be an art found out that might produce his shape so lively as to write?" There was an art that produced his shape, and you're seeing it. And if we just go back to this, you'll notice, "In wisdom hast thou made them all." In wisdom. Well, one of my favourite poems in this book is a parallel of The Prince to the King by Mr. Ben Jonson, apparently. "His Nestor knew in arms his fellow was, but not in years. Too soon run out of his glass." We'll ignore glass for the minute. Just some foreboding. "Ours, though not Nestor knew, we trust shall be, as wise in arms, as old in years as he." Well, if we look at the epitaph on the Shakespeare's funerary monument, what's the first two words that start that? Judico Pilium. Well, the wise King Nestor was the king of Pylos. So this is judgment, Nestor for judgment, wisdom, Nestor for wisdom, saying that Shakespeare is, which, as you can see here, and let's hope he was as wise in arms as he is quite old in years. Now, you might also notice this fleur-de-lis underneath, and you might notice a fleur-de-lis at the bottom there, which is just lovely. And if you're looking for art that can produce the shape, within those first two lines, you have an art there, you have a crafty art there, we have an art there, and we have an art there, kind of hidden away, move some letters around, they're there, leaves living art but one page. Now, if we have a look at the epistle in the front to the readers, and epistles, very important. If we have a look at what it's saying, "My Lord T, the mark of his desert." If we think about the origin of T, well, the origin of T actually comes from taf or tav, the Hebrew meaning mark. It was a mark the Egyptians used as a mark to plough the fields for the ox. So that's where it's coming from, the T. If we read this, "In the person of one deceased, the for me or form, whereof somewhat dispersed, yet carry with them the prerogative of truth to be Mr. Ben Jonson, and will so appear to all those whose eyes and spirits are rightly placed." And this last bit, "I shall be glad by this small I shall be glad by this small testimony, account it a fit opportunity to assure you your honour." There's your honour there. Let's place our eyes at the right place. It is telling us to do this. Place your eyes at the right place. "My Lord," there's "my Lord, that I am." And here is our proof. These are T's in the Minerva Britanna. We're placing our eyes at the right place, at "my Lord, that I am T." So it's literally telling you, place your eyes at the right place, "My Lord, that I am." He is T. John Benson, he's moved Ben, he swapped the Ben and the Johnson there. He's telling you that he is T. And if you think about it, you'll notice that on the end of mark, which means T, you have an E, and on the end of for me, you have an E on the end, for, so for T, and there's our T there from our proof by Pilcrow. And of course, we've looked at the 4 T's already. In the cryptic dedication to the sonnets, we have 4 T's, 4 T there. So it really is a great little proof there. We've looked at the falcon above Ben Jonson's grave. Now, Ben Jonson's grave, which you probably will have walked over, it's a very, very humble grave that I didn't notice when I first walked over it. It is here, so now you know. But there is a lot of meaning and symbolism all the way around it. Some of that I go into in more depth in my video, but I'm just going to show you some of the main things. Here is a lamp which is on fire, where it just so happens that there's another monument that was erected in 1723, 100 years after the William Camden First Folio and Execration against Vulcan, by the Earl of Oxford in the eastern aisle of Poets' Corner. Both this monument and the William Camden are in fact in the corners of Poets' Corner. And you'll notice on the top of that there's a lamp. Apart from this lamp is not on fire. You might also notice the O rare Ben Jonson with the eta, that H in Johnson, and with the colon. This is taken from the first folio, the second dedicated poem of the first folio. You have this colon, and you've also actually met already another colon in with Mr. Edmund Edmund Bolton. But if you have a look, if you just well, it's all to do with metamorphoses and transformations, isn't it? If you just rotate that M 180 degrees, you'll have a double V Edward. And this monument is by the Earl of Oxford. However, there's a little discrepancy. It was erected in 1723. That's a bit of a problem, given the last Earl of Oxford by that title, the 20th and last Earl of Oxford, died in 1703. So that's 20 years after 1703. Here's the 20th Earl of Oxford's arms, and you can see the Earl of De Vere's coat there in that corner. So the last Earl of Oxford died in 1703, 20 years before that monument was erected. A new single peerage was created in 1711, however, for the Earl of Oxford and Mortimer. Now that's a single peerage, so that's one title, the Earl of Oxford and Mortimer. It's a single title. Should we have a look at the Earl of Oxford and Mortimer's coat of arms? It was for Robert Harley, the eldest son of Edward. What's his coat of arms look like? Well, this is the Earl of Oxford and Mortimer's coat of arms, and this is Shakespeare's coat of arms. And if you can see, there's some similarities, some commonalities between these coat of arms. Both have a field oar and a bend sable. That's unmistakable in their similarity. Now, there's also something very cunning going on, which is to do with this. In the Accedence of Armoury, it actually explains what's going on. We have the fourth part of the bend and half the gartier, and is called at some time a cottis. This is a cottis, and at some other time a batten, as by practice ye shall the rather know when it is called the one and when the other. Well, let me try to make this a little bit clearer. Cottis, batten. There's a cottis, this is a cottis here. A batten, however, is couped, it is cut at either end. This is a batten, cottis, batten. And what would happen if I put a batten with the same width, the cottis, on the bend? You would have this. So there is our batten on the Earl of Oxford and Mortimer, just as it describes here. And we have pretty much almost the same coat of arms. So there you go. You can see those unmistakable commonalities there. Now, we've seen the grave of someone standing upright, but there's also many important things going around this. For instance, these angels, look at what we're pointing to. We're pointing to Arte. The other angel seems to have lost her finger. She is pointing to something, I promise you that. Now in the Accedence we have this one, which is a good one to remember. And here is this escutcheon is to be noted, so pay attention, that my cutter hath done a fault, for he hath set her going out of the field, which nothing ought to do that is movable. Yet workmen that be not skilful in this art do commit the like faults very often. Faults are often a good way of knowing that something is taking place in his books. As, for example, the glasser that glassed the temple church windows on the north side hath set the arms of England so out of order as the lions are going out of the field. So that neither the glasser, painter, nor any that cutteth in stone may do in these things without the advice of heralds. Well, it just so happens that where do you think Mr. Ben Jonson is buried? But in the north aisle of Westminster Abbey, the Isle of Scientists. The church upon a tomb. We're in a church, Westminster Abbey. Upon a tomb. Here take with you a rule that nothing may be set with the head downwards. Now we're going to have a look at some other things around the mischief that's going on here, and let's have a look at this glass here in the northern aisle. Now you'll notice that there are quite a few coats of arms going on around it, including on the windows, that fleur-de-lis. So there's quite a lot going on here, but notice we have some lions at the top and someone with their head downwards on this window. Now, if we have a look at this window, this is one of the most important windows, I think, in Westminster Abbey. We have two V's, a double V above, a double V below. This is the window of Edwardus Primus Rex. We have some E's, that figure of addition, wearing a crown. If we have a look more specifically at the person, we have someone holding a spear. And if you look around the border, we also have a Vere. And underneath his red, he is wearing green. His undercoat is green. Now, in heraldry, our green is our vert. That's our green colour, our tricking term in heraldic terms, our Vere. So his undercoat is Vere, no matter what his outside clothes may be. And you also notice this. There's these, what looks like horns, ox horns, and actually you'll see these all over the place. Now, I very much recommend reading book 15 of Ovids Metamorphoses, particularly the last 3 stories in Ovids Metamorphoses. This is Kippus, the Roman general, who didn't want to be the emperor of Rome, so craftily manages to get himself banished because he doesn't want it. And the city honour him by carving ox horns into the gates of the city, so he'll ever be remembered. And you'll see some ox horns on quite a few things. This is from the first folio. Here's your Ancora Spy with its ox horns, the Accedence, the ox horns all over the place, Cardanvs Comforte, your ox horns. This is a symbol that is by Edward de Vere. Now, I missed this the first time I knew this was here at Westminster Abbey. The first time I took pictures and then went home, then I suddenly realised that I'd missed something, which was I hadn't been paying attention close enough to what was behind this front marble piece. And this is what is behind, and it's rather quite beautiful and will now make a lot more sense. A Shakespeare rose, Shakespeare and Garrick, like twin stars, shall shine, and earth irradiate with a beam divine. Well, this is a glass window where the sun is shining through. It is a living monument. And here is our rose, our golden rose. A rose ore. Remember, ore is gold. This flower of all other is the beautifulest to behold and of most comfortable, comforting will smell. Pliny writeth that amongst all flowers of the world the rose is chiefest and beareth the prize. Therefore, saith he, the chiefest part of man, which is the head, is crowned with roses. And so agreeth that it is written in the book, notice the only end, of wisdom, Let us crown ourselves with roses, meaning with the sweetest smell of heaven's joys. Of this golden rose I could say more, but because it is Romish, I put it off. That's or as well. I put it off. And here is this beautiful golden rose. And if we look at the first part of the author's conclusion from the Minerva Britanna, as when the sky was calm and fair, the winds did cease and clouds were fled. Aurora, the goddess of the dawn, the arrival of the sun, scattered Phoebus, the god of the sun, hair, his light beams, new risen from her rosy bed. And here is the rose that I hope is rising. You'll also notice that in the centre of the rose is this bird. Now this is an important bird. Perhaps it's Jove's bird, perhaps it is a phoenix. 1, 2, 3. Notice that 1, 2, 3. Sun, phoenix or eagle, and the earth. So same order. This is the birds of Jove, or I suppose Io, or love. And there's a lot of brilliance you can have with that word. Take to you this, that monarchs may envy. And believe me, I don't know any other monarch that will have a monument quite of this scale in history. Although who's to say he's a monarch? Upon this circle, striving here and there, indeed it is upon a circle, to heavenward, homeward, whence you had your birth. And notice this star here, this star, Virtus. Virtus is a type of virtue. So again, we have virtue yet will ever abide with us, yet that shall mount with our minds into the highest heavens. You also notice that this bird of Jove is on what seems to be some lightning bolts. Now, it took me ages to work out what these lightning bolts were about, because here we have Jove giving birth to his daughter Pallas Athena, the goddess of wisdom, the city of playwrights. For instance, Pallas, the goddess of playwrights, she's normally born shaking a spear, though. Apparently, that's according to Homer, she's born shaking a spear. Well, there doesn't seem to be any spear there, but there are lightning bolts, which seem to be flaming lightning bolts, actually, in Jove's hands there. Which is quite interesting, and also in this one. Now, I said in in my 8-hour video that I was going to go to the terminus, but I don't think I actually understood why I said I was going to the terminus. But I was working frantically at that point. So this is why it's the terminus. A pillar high erected was of stone in former times. In former times it was of stone, not anymore, not in this case, which terminus they named. The upper part was like a woman framed. Well, we have something that has been framed, but it's not of stone, it's of glass, and marble hard the pillar was the rest. So the bottom is of marble, as indeed it is, and the top is framed in glass. Beautiful, and that is why it's the terminus. His hest and answered, I give place to none. Edward de Vere became nothing, he became none. I am bound to things which God above hath fixed, and none is able to remove. So here we go. And also, if we have a look at what's underneath, this is beautiful. Science and ingenuity. And in the Accedence, it says, like as science and cunning is the only good of the world, so is ignorance the only evil. And remember, he's buried in the Isle of Scientists because he did a lot for science, let us say. Now, this is remarkable. In the other direction, here's the other window, which I absolutely adore. You might notice the staff of Asclepius down at the bottom there, and some other really interesting things. Staff of Asclepius is the third story in Book 15 of Ovids Metamorphoses. Now, this window, can you see it? we have our Falcon. And what is our golden falcon looking at? Well, this is the window of Edward the Confessor. Very witty. I absolutely adore it. And along the border, we of course have lots of falcons and with crowns and a key. You can see a key there as well. And if we just look a little bit more at this, rings are for remembrance, circles for eternity, which is why he's holding a ring there. We have again our ox horns, but his book we seem to have, I'm sorry about the picture quality there, we have a P. So again, we seem to have a P in his book, Pilcrow. And what's really lovely with our falcon as well, let's have a look at this. Look at what's around V, a key. There's our key again. Suddenly our E on its side actually looks like a skull. And hopefully you can now see this. We have our black skull, our skull of sable, and our golden skull, both at the top, our falcons beneath our skulls. Absolutely stunning. And now we know windows are important. Let's look behind the monument at the window. What do we have but the flaming ox? The ox on fire. It's always been there for us to see, and it's just absolute genius. Yeah, it's incredible. So just to have a look at this and to tie this all together, you'll notice there's so you've actually got 40 on this window. X, 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 that's 40. But you'll notice there's some ribbons on that X there. On that coat, we have some ribbons going through the masks beneath the monument of the Earl of Oxford to Ben Jonson. And in the Minerva, we have some more masks with some ribbons. And just to tie this all together, it is the falcon that ties all of this together. It is the speedy dispatcher finding its prey and its rightful owner. All shapes like Proteus, that shape-shifting being, gladly entertains, thus every way transform himself he can, just like the Metamorphoses is all about transformation. Now, we have this in the Minerva Britanna, this youth dressed in his clothes in sundry colours, light and painted plumes that overspread his crest. And also in the Iconologia, it explains this humorsomeness. Our humours are every man in his humour and every man out of his humours. We have this wonderful line which is starred to kind of draw attention to it. For like our minds, we are commonly dressed. Well, here's Shakespeare's, in inverted commas, coat of arms. And here's another coat of arms. This is Edward de Vere's 1586 coat of arms, his last coat of arms he goes to, which has 21 different coats within this arms. So for like our minds, we are commonly dressed. You may notice this bird in this flaming crown on top, which may well be a falcon. Where is this coat of arms from? This coat of arms is from a brilliant book. This is my copy, called the English Secretorie. Now, if we have a look, we have some double V's, is contained, diversities, delivered. This is by Angel Day. You'll notice just inside as well, in the letter, but spelling of day is not quite right. We've of course already looked at a day, John Day, in the elements of geometry. He's represented by 40. Ulterior Fortuna Virtus, we have our virtue. We have the sign of the rose, where we've just seen a rose, and we have our P there. Now, we actually have 4 Ps within this book. Here's one to the Right Honourable Lord Edward de Vere, Earl of Oxenford. These A's, which you'll find all over the place, which I explained in my 8-hour video, where they come from serving their prince. We have one pilcrow though, which is a little bit different from this, and this is on the to the reader page for the perfect peruser. It is there, just talking about which always myself by Overgreat has placed. And there are a few faults. It's talking about this whole page is brilliant actually. Like it's worth reading because it's very witty. But that is there for you. Now I'm just going to show you some key proofs just to show you that what we've just seen is here and tells you about this. Think when you took upon. We'll start with the ear. The eternity which is there. Think when you took upon you to bear arms, you that received the first cognizance of virtue. A coat of arms is a cognizance, a sign, a symbol. So this is linking the coat of arms with virtue. Now here's a lot of fun, and you should at length receive the reward of ever flourishing glory. And I very much hope that hopefully our poet does start to receive the rewards he rightfully deserves. Now, within the English Secretorie, you have a lot of fun. I really love this book. It's all to do with the art of writing letters, epistles. Watch the pagination though, because that's a sign something is going on. Often he models that which he's teaching. Here he's teaching about ordering your epistles and not repeating yourself, and here he's just being very, very silly, but it's a lot of fun. These are the page numbers in order as it reads. Pay attention to that, it's really fun. But if we turn to this page here, page 63, this is one of the key proofs about what I've been saying. So we have virtue. A prince so rare and incomparable worthiness as yourself will confess throughout all of the course of his life to have been of all others the most happy and virtuous Edward, my lord, young Edward, the Black Prince, a cognomen, a sobriquet. He became nothing. Sable black is the colour of nothing. This is the prince whom nature, fortune, and virtue. Now, if we have a look, I'm not going to go through the whole epistle, but it's a joy to read. The last page of the same epistle, which is epistle laudatory, lauding of a person, of the person. Now, this is the same letter, right? At the end of this letter, look at what's happening. Virtue. The very face of heaven itself perisheth. Only sacred virtue is hyphen that. Virtue is immortal. My lord virtuously. Now, I just want you to pay attention to this. Look at the spelling of virtue. Here's some cognitive dissonance for you. This is the same letter by the same author. V-I-R, V-E-R. This is why virtue is key, because it's Edward de Vere, Vere. Yeah, it's there. We have our Vere, which is why the spelling of virtue is very important. Brilliant, no? So this is in the same letter. You can really see this for yourself. The highest and chiefest virtues. So there is our virtue. Again, it really is the proof that Edward de Vere is this author. We talk about, I mentioned this, the diamond glimpse, whereof equaleth in beauty the fairest, and dimmeth by the very shadow thereof the glittering pomp of the mightiest. Here's a diamond, this shape here. This is where De Vere is buried, and it is a diamond shape, and I'll show you a shadow in a little bit. If we have a look at the bottom though, schemes, figures and tropes, let him cannot I'll read it. Cannot by the learner's simple conceit therein be gathered. Let him but turn to the latter part of this book, and there, as before I promised, shall he find every one in his true nature, and kind to him perfectly at large deciphered. Well, let's decipher it. Here's the back of this book, the last page of this book, and here is this printing device. Let's have a look at it. We have a book with a heart in a crucible on fire. Fire is important. 2 hands coming out, secret hands coming out of the clouds. We have this, what seems like globe on a chain, and beneath it we have the sun. And what is on the head of that sun but a T? My Lord T, my Lord that I am, he is T. This he's showing you is his book, which he has authored, and he is T. But funnily enough, this printing device is also a printing device that has been known to have been used by Mr. John Day. So this is the same printing device that John Day, in quotation marks, has been using. So it's just showing you that this is the same author, that Edward de Vere is the author of also the Elements of Geometry and many other books has he translated into English. And I'm sure he's learning as he's translating, as he's going. So yeah, if it's printed by John Day, just be aware it's probably Edward de Vere. Now, this is the book. I'm going to kind of finish with the book that started all of this for me. I found this book. I accidentally realised it was by Shakespeare, and this is the start of this journey that I've been on. This is The Art of English Prose. It's my favourite book. It's a beautiful book. I love it. But let's have a look at the preface of this book. Now, this book, you notice the E on the end, coming to my hands without any author's name. So even if there is a red herring of and a name that's been appended later on, this book has a bare title without any author's name. It says that in the printer's preface of this book. Now, I'm going to put a key down there because there's some thematic keys that I need you to pay attention to within this printer's preface because it's quite dense and there's a lot of wit, and the figures that he teaches in book 3 he's using on you. So I'm just going to show you the first person's omission coming to my hands, a view of mine, impression, a feat of mine own simple faculty, I dare conceive them, myself, and notice that conceited E, myself, a printer. You have love and desire, may, and nothing, as nothing. So slender a subject as nothing almost could be. Now, he plays with you in this book, and he invites you to guess on his name in the preceding chapter, and then in chapter 19 of this book, in the figure of response, answering a question, he reveals his identity to be Edward de Vere, Edward, Earl of Oxford, a most noble and learned gentleman. I'm just going to put the key here, just so you can see we have the same keys. The printer's preface sets up this game. It tells you who is the author, and the figure of response reveals it for you. So you can see these devices here. I set down, notice the E, some part of these verses. You notice the E's and the may, the maid, love and desire, Cupid, a metaphor for love and desire, devoid, nothing. But now you may also notice our day, like John Day or Angel Day, me day. Very clever. Now this, I didn't understand this fully when I read it. Now it's so obvious, but you don't see what you're not paying attention to. This is the figure of counterfeit action. He teaches you of counterfeit countenance, of course, one countenance to the world, which they call chaos. He teaches different things: counterfeit place, counterfeit time, counterfeit impersonation. This is pragmatographia, or the counterfeit action, which is made to represent the handling of any business with the circumstances belonging thereunto as the manner of a battle, a feast, a marriage, a burial, or any other matter that hath in feet and activity. We call them the counterfeit action. So in this figure, the Lord Nicholas Val, a noble gentleman, can I remind you, this is the counterfeit action. Much delighted in vulgar making, a man of otherwise no great learning, but herein having a marvellous faculty, made a ditty representing the battle and assault of Cupid. He's modelling that which he's teaching. Lord Nicholas Val did not make this. This is the counterfeit action. So let me just show you. Here's our keys, the same keys from the printer's preface, and here are our devices. You'll see the may, that's been hidden in the made and making, a man of otherwise no great learning. Cupid, I cannot choose but set down, the first person admissions. You also have the heth in feet, brilliant, double V is heth, heth in feet and activity. He's literally telling you what he's doing. I love this. And there's our love and desire. When Cupid scaled first the fort, wherein my heart lay wounded sore, the battery was of such a sort that I must yield or die therefore. There saw I love upon the wall, how his banner did display. Alarm, alarm he gan to call, and had his soldiers keep array. The arms that Cupid bare, we pierced hearts with tears besprent, in silver and sable to declare the steadfast love he always meant. There might you see his band all dressed in colours like to white and black, with powder and with pellets pressed to bring them forth to spoil and sack. Good will the master of the shot stood in the rampire, brave and proud, that's goodwill. For expense of powder he spared not, assault, assault, to cry aloud. There might you hear the cannons roar, each pierce discharging a lover's look, anchor, and continue, sorry, not anchor, although that is a symbol of anchor, which is why I'm saying it really. So if we look at Shakespeare's Coat of Arms, there's the colours, and if you hear the cannons roar, because we're playing an auricular game as well, you might be able to hear the ore, the gold, that's within this. We have the silver and the sable, and the ore is all the way through, and we've got a number of 4 T's as well in this, so that's there, the 4 T's, the 4T. But there's something else going on here which you may now notice. Silver. As we know, it should not be silver. That is not a heraldic term. It should be argent. Yeah, we have sable. It should be argent, but we've used silver. Why? Because no king of arms would ever blaze silver. He's told you in this poem. I just didn't understand it at the time, but now it's obviously there for you. Just absolute genius in many ways. And why silver? Well, silver, the ver in silver, it's just absolute genius. It really is. If we have a look at argent or silver, the description of silver in the Accedence of Armories, there's actually lots of brilliance taking place. I'd recommend reading this because it's a lot of fun. But I just want to bring your attention to this. On this one line, we have art and art. This is the art with an E on the end of English posies, the art of English poesy. I marvel what science art. There's some more cognitive dissonance for you. You can see clearly the spelling is different. Art there, art with an E on the end. Now, stay passenger. Why goest by so fast? We're referring to the Falcon. Read if thou canst. Not read the epitaph, read the symbolism, and most definitely read the coat of arms, because it's telling you what's going on, and maybe I'd also read the window behind it. So read if thou canst. It's telling you what is going on. Now, as you can see, this game is genius, and this is the genius game of, and I'm very happy to give you this portrait. This is the Titian portrait, probably one of the last he did, of Edward de Vere. Titian was doing a series on Ovid's Metamorphosis, so there was no way that Edward de Vere wasn't going to, given the fact he translates Ovids Metamorphosis for the first time into English, you can watch me show you that in Artos the Friendly Bear, my video Artos the Friendly Bear. So this is his Titian portrait. You may be able to see, hidden within the lines at the back, we have a man in a mask. The man in the mask, you also see his left hand is hiding behind his back. He's wearing predominantly sable, the colour of nothing, with a small gold chain. And this is the very shadow. We have a very dominant shadow in this picture here, which of course is hiding a lot of really exciting things. This is one of the most complicated pictures I've ever seen. There's so much meaning in this picture. I'll show you a little bit of it. Here's his star, here's his signature, his Vere. Now, also, we have this. I'm not sure whether you can see this. We have a falcon. So the falcon is actually in the back of this picture. It's quite difficult to see though, but you might be able to see this. This is an oyster or a clam. You might be able to see it now. Oyster or clam there. Just going to go back to the previous colour as well, because you might be able to see it. So there's your oyster or your clam, which is here. You might be able to see it better in this picture. There's your oyster right next to his head. Now, what do oysters contain? Oysters or clams contain pearls. And it just so happens in our silver, our argent section of the Accedence that we talk about the stone, which is akin to silver, which is the pearl. And it's the dew of heaven. Notice the e's on the end. The pearl hath virtue, comfortative, and restorative, and is the food to man, which verified nothing to eat, but only pearls. Aristotle telleth that the pearl hath a singular virtue in comforting the brain, so virtue in comforting the brain, and indeed the pearl is right next to his head. The pearls, which when we found one precious pearl. Now, just notice this line again, because here's some more cognitive dissonance for you, so you can just really see. Look at the spelling of pearls here. Look at the spelling of pearl here. With this spelling, we do not have an E. And if we continue, whereby here Hawk's heralds may learn to bestow this precious treasure upon such a worthily will esteem the same, and to reward the ox with hay. And hopefully the ox has got his hay. Why pearl though? You may be wondering why the pearl. Well, think about what pearl contains. Pearl contains earl. So this is your P, which you've seen, your pilcrow, and the many P's I've shown you throughout this video, and earl with an E on the end. E, the most characteristic letter in his name. There's 4 E's in Edward de Vere. This is Edward de Vere, the 17th Earl of Oxford, and this is his magnificent portrait. You are looking on an incredible, learned and wonderful scholar who's done more for the English language and learning in this country than probably anyone. And this is his wonderful portrait. And I very much hope this magnificent, virtuous man can get the credit that he rightfully deserves. Thank you very much for watching this video, and all the best to you. Thank you.